Hello, Perry Risers. So welcome to the second week of our Black History Month focuses. As you may be aware, over the next couple of weeks, we'll be having a particular focus for our services, celebrating the month of Black History Month at Perry Rise. And just following on from last week's introduction, which was done by Sheila, it was so encouraging just to see so many conversations that were had about Black history. So many questions were asked. I myself has had so many questions and conversations and learned so many new things that I wasn't aware of just over the last couple of weeks. So it's been really encouraging to see. So last week rather, we gave an introduction into Black History Month and what this month actually really represents. And we just wanted to place great emphasis on the fact that Black History Month is for everyone. It's for all people, all nations, and it's a time to come together and celebrate the achievements of Black people, both past and present. But it's also a time for us to look at some influential people throughout the time and also unveil some forgotten places. So this week, week 2, the focus will be called the Great African Civilization. And without sounding so much like a history lesson, I first wanted to define what is meant by the term civilization. As when I'm doing these types of things, I always find it helpful just to research certain words because it helps me with my understanding of certain things. So one of the definitions I came across when looking at civilization was the process by which a society or place reaches advanced stage of social and cultural development and organization. It was then fascinating for me to go on to learn about Africa. And actually, one of the things I found was that Africa is the genetic home of all currently living humanity. And I found that really fascinating. And when I read on, it also said that it's only, and I say only, but between 50,000 and 80,000 years ago that some African migrants left the continent to spread across the rest of the world. So I found that quite interesting. So today, I just wanted to highlight some interesting facts regarding some of the great African civilizations. And some of the ones I wanted to mention today are Ethiopia, Benin, the Kingdom of Ghana, and the Great Zimbabwe. So let's start by mentioning Ethiopia. And this is a question to you. So, did you know that Ethiopia is the oldest independent African country and remains one of the only nations to have never been colonized? So I didn't know that at all. And when I was doing my reading up on this, found that Ethiopia was such a strong country and its empire was flourishing. And it was described as having such incredibly strong sense of unity amongst its people. And there was so much respect and everyone respected one another. And it was just such unity was there. And this proved quite beneficial when Italy tried to take control of the empire, but actually it was undefeated. So that's one thing to remember, actually, that Ethiopia was one of the only nations that was never colonized. And I found that fascinating. Secondly, we move on to the Kingdom of Benin. And this began in the 900s. Sounds like such a long time ago, which obviously was, but in the 900s, when the people of Benin settled in to the rainforest of West Africa. And by the 1400s, they had created such a wealthy kingdom and extremely powerful ruler, which were known to be called the Obas. And the Obas lived in really beautiful places, decorated with shining brass and huge, grand decorations. And as time went on, the Obas won more land and built up an empire. And then they started trading with various merchants from Europe. Then for 200 years, Benin was very successful, But in the 1600s, the Obists, so these powerful rulers, they started to lose control of their people. So then by the 1800s, Benin was no longer strong or united. And then the kingdom came to a sudden end in 1897 when the British Army invaded it and made it part of the British Empire. And another thing, and I probably use the word fascinating a lot because it's all very fascinating to me, but one of the things I found fascinating was that Benin was part of the British Empire up until the 1960s, which actually isn't that long ago. And it then went on to become part of the independent country of Nigeria. But it was interesting to learn that from the 900s, when it was so successful, and it was only until the 1960s that it wasn't part of the British Empire anymore. So I found that really, really useful to know and to learn. Then moving on to the Kingdom of Ghana. The Kingdom of Ghana was a West African empire located in the area of present-day southeastern Mauritania and West Mali. So between the 9th and the 11th centuries, the Kingdom of Ghana was so rich, and this made me laugh actually, and I laugh so many times, I've said this so many times, but it was so rich that its dogs wore collars made from solid gold, and the horses wore silk robes and the halters, and they slept on really, really fancy, soft, very expensive carpets. And these were the horses, these were the animals of the time. So if we can just imagine how well they were clothed and dressed as animals, let alone the actual people of this empire. So that was fascinating for me to discover. And lastly, I would like to mention the Kingdom of Zimbabwe, which is also known as Great Zimbabwe. And this is a ruined city in the southeastern hills of Zimbabwe, but the site itself isn't too far from the country's borders with Mozambique. And that was, again, really interesting for me to know, because when I heard of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe, I assumed that it would be in present day Zimbabwe as we know it, but it's actually not. Archaeologists that looked at this site discovered goods as far as China, which shows that they were trading from many places around the world. And it shows that they were trading at really, really great distances. And the city has stopped growing when the traders from Portugal came to Southern Africa about 500 years ago, but nobody actually knows why. So just looking at this and this brief journey throughout history, I've come to realize that there are so many places that have been unveiled and there's still so much to learn. So I would challenge you to look into this more and educate yourself and learn about the fascinating places of Africa and Black history itself, because there's so many. I've only mentioned 4 of them today, but there are so many interesting places to look at, and just to look at the contributions that Black people have made to society as we know it. So thank you for listening.